right, Dave. I'm going to ask you to tell me the title of this book that the author that we're going to have on the show wrote, and I think people within 5 seconds will understand why we've chosen to have him on the show.
Hustling Hitler.
Hustling Hitler. That's right. The author of Hustling Hitler is our guest today.
The following is a Tony Lasano podcast, an Opie show on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network. This is the Minutia Men Celebrity Interview with Rick and Dave.
Rick, I'm not sure I've ever woken up happier than I knew I was going to get our guest today. We have a wonderful guest today. Not only is he an accomplished and successful columnist who has written for the New Republic, Roll Call, USA Today, Time, Esquire, Newsweek, these little like the Guardian, the Washington Post.
Yeah.
He has written one of the coolest books I've ever read, and it's called Hustling Hitler. Please welcome Walter Shapiro. Hello, Walter.
Hello. Greetings from New York.
I imagine every family has that one deceased relative that is almost held up as a mythological creature. In my family was my grandfather, Franz. He owned the largest newspaper in Berlin in the 30s. We heard of stories about his womanizing and his perhaps loose relationship with the law, and all the celebrities that he hung out with. In fact, until I was 40, I believed the family lore that Houdini actually attended his funeral, which actually turned out to be complete bullshit because Houdini died 3 years before my grandfather died. But
it would have been a hell of a Houdini trick if he had shown up.
Great. It would have been a great trick.
Greatest trick ever.
But the crazy stories you were told about your great uncle Freeman Bernstein are all true. Tell us a little bit about a little bit about Freeman and the jobs he had over the years. And
Sure. I grew up, my father was a city planner in suburban Connecticut. We are talking about colorful, cutting edge, late nights at zoning board hearings. But my father kept saying that he had an uncle who was big in show business, knew all the stars, married a showgirl, fixed races, and cheated Hitler in a nickel deal. Now, this was like my father taking me aside and saying, son, you know something? You're a direct descendant of Sitting Bull.
Because lots of Jews were.
Impressive, but a tad unlikely.
Yeah, right.
And it was only a couple of years after my father died that, by chance, I came upon a relative, a distant relative, who said, I heard the only thing interesting about our family was I thought I had a distant relative who was big in show business who cheated Hitler. That was enough for me to, and I hate to give away trade secrets, but to use one of the great tricks in a journalist's repertoire.
Is it Google?
And please, I hope everyone's writing this down. I went to Google.
I knew it. We're great journalists too, Walter.
Right. Yeah. Don't tell anyone.
And the first thing that pops up, because he had a distinctive name, Freeman Bernstein. If he had a name like Sam Bernstein, like his brother, I'd still be waiting for proctologists from Minneapolis. Yeah. But the first thing that pops up, metals dealer denies bilking Hitler, arrested. It turns out that here is my great uncle Freeman Bernstein, arrested at the corner of Hollywood and Vine in the back of a chauffeured limousine in early 1937, a little after midnight, having just left Mae West's apartment.
Yeah, everybody's got a great uncle. If I had a nickel for every time that happened.
Oh, well, let's merely say that a lot of nickel went into this scam. The scam actually had been that nickel turns out to be a war material, and was real. And the best nickel was in Canada, and you couldn't get it. But Freeman and a bent nickels dealer out of Toronto spread the word that they had 200 tons of nickel.
And by spreading the word, he's lying.
What they actually had was 20 pounds of nickel, which they bought from a metal shop in Lower Manhattan, and 200 tons of scrap metal, which they bought from the scrap metal dealer in Toronto. One of the great tricks that if you're going to pull off a scam, is load the metal on a boat leaving Halifax, Nova Scotia harbor in early March when the temperature is -9 below.
Yeah, because no one's going to check it.
Very few people, under those circumstances, very few people are motivated to closely check the cargo.
Yeah.
So what happened is the boat arrives in Hamburg. As my great uncle Freeman later said, if you melted it down, there's probably a little nickel in there somewhere. He took off for the Orient, where he had crowned himself as the Jade King of China, which was it was like King Arthur and the Sword of the Stone. It was sort of a magical investiture. He comes back having smuggled various stones into the country with the help of one of the dogs who always traveled with him. I don't need to go into details. And he was showing it. He was trying to sell the jewels to Mae West right before he was arrested. And what I quickly learned, I'd written an earlier book. I had a couple of failed book projects. But what I quickly learned is if you can write a book proposal with Mae West and Adolf Hitler in the first paragraph, and neither is a metaphor, you'll probably sell the book.
Yeah, that's so.
It's a movie, though. Isn't that a movie?
That's what one of my questions is. How is this not a movie? So he contacted you.
It is. Let me say, under option to turn it into a Broadway musical, like the producer.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
And you both get seats down front, opening night 2034.
Yeah, we're not paying we're not going to pay you in advance for them because we know your family and what the history is.
We've fallen for this one before.
So he's in New York, right? Or Troy, New York. Is that where was he? No,
he was born in Troy, New York.
Okay. So
1873.
So, and you may not have the answers. So he one day is drinking or whatever, and he goes, let's scam the Nazis, and well,
it was basically he was willing to scam anyone.
Yeah,
he was an equal opportunity scammer. The fact that it was the Nazis were sort of the cherry on the top of the sundae. But trust me, if it was the King of England, there still would be the sundae.
Right.
Yeah, but it's believe me. The Hitler part is not only the cherry, it's the little sprinkles and it's everything.
By the way, I have to say that one of the problems with the book and the commercial realities of publishing.
Yeah, well, we're publishers, so we know.
Was that it was filed under Holocaust studies.
Oh my God.
So, I mean, here is this romp about a guy who's big in vaudeville, who had every hustle, and people looked at the cover under Holocaust studies, and it was clear how somebody got out of Auschwitz, which is a sad story.
Yeah.
This is a happy story.
This is a happy Nazi story.
Yeah.
Okay.
A merry Nazi story.
So do you know how much money? I can't remember. So
he walked off, or they brought in about the equivalent of about $2 million today. Unfortunately, my Uncle Freeman, as he ran off to the Far East, left some of it in a bank account that was looted by his Canadian accomplice, but you can't have everything.
Yes, when you can't trust your fellow scammers, who can you trust?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, so I've been thinking about this, that the vaudeville angle is interesting to me. Can you tell us a little bit about, what kind of bits he did, or what was his?
Amsterdam?
He was a Broadway agent, a vaudeville agent, and basically he was famous on Broadway in about 1910 for four things: the loudest voice, the biggest cigars, the most outrageous dreams, and the most incredible ability never to pay a bill.
Bialystok.
I mean, he made Donald Trump look like a conscientious bill payer in comparison. And basically, there were problems with certain actors whose compensation was, shall we say, delayed by decades.
I was lost in the mail, Walter.
I have to pause and pick up with the doctor. I will call you back soonest.
Okay.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
There's more to come with our guest on Minutia Men's Celebrity Interview right after this. We'll be right back.
This is Minutia Men with Rick and Dave.
We are happy to have Mark Cuban on the show.
Is there a way that we can monetize my daughter's eye rolls? Can you do anything? Can you figure that out?
So my daughter, I'll let her put on Sirius XM whatever song she likes. We pull into this half circle when I drop her off, and, she's ready to get out of the car. I'll say, "I love you, sweetie." Bam! Blast it. And, and if it's a song I know the words to, then I'm singing along, too, and her friends are looking at me and looking at the car.
Oh, man, there's nothing more embarrassing than dad singing along.
Oh, man, it's like, "Kiki, do you love me?"
Tony Lasano Podcast, an Opie production on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
RadioMisfits.com.
We are back with more Minutia Men Celebrity Interview.
Okay, Walter is back. Everything okay
Well,
there,
I'm
Walter?
here.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Because I don't think we've ever had a guest die in the middle of an interview.
That would be bad.
That would be
bad.
So you were talking about vaudeville, right? And he can you elaborate a little bit about vaudeville? We'll edit it.
Well, what was really fascinating about him is that Variety started the famous show business publication started out as a vaudeville publication in 1906. And almost immediately, the founding editor of Variety, Syme Silverman, thought my great Uncle Freeman was a great Broadway character. So every 2 or 3 weeks, he would go to his office and interview him. And these would be wonderful riffs about his dreams, about all of his legal fights, about the people he didn't pay. He was married to a showgirl by the name of May Ward. And between the two of them, they had 6 bankruptcies.
Wow.
He was really upset over one of them.
1 out of 6, not so bad.
It was her 3rd bankruptcy, where instead of being on page 1 of the New York World, as her first 2 bankruptcies were, it only ran in the agate type next to Broke Furriers.
Yeah.
That doesn't even count.
Yeah, right. That's not a...
Yeah, I mean, the indignity that May Ward, his wife, going bankrupt wasn't a big news story. It was the only time he ever was embarrassed. But the point was that the stories just got more and more elaborate. For example, he had so many people he owed that his dream was to sneak into the office at 6 o'clock in the morning to be there when the early mail arrived in those days. Maybe there's a check in it that he could cash before anyone shows up to take it from him.
Wow.
But he was also a big spender. That at one point he had somehow come up with $100 fee, and he was so proud of it, he went to the Astor Hotel to order a $3 breakfast, and he said to the waiter, "I'm sorry, I have nothing smaller. Here's a $100 bill." and the waiter comes back with this pile of change. Because you know what $100 was in 1911.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, somebody who was a showbiz person down on his luck sees the pile of money, comes over and says, "Freeman, could you lend me $50? And Freeman, even though that's half of his net worth, gives the guy the $50.
Oh. See, so he had a good side to him too.
Oh, he had a good side. After show business, he drifted into other occupations such as managing prize fighters, and he was always big for the races. And in fact, he was so big for the races that he was banned from racing on 3 continents. Do you have any idea how crooked you have to be
for the horse racing?
From banned from the track in Acapulco, Mexico?
It would have been even more shocking if he was banned from boxing promoting.
Yeah, right.
There were a few incidents there, but as Variety said in 1920, the problem with his horses is they were overeducated. Every time in the far turn, they would turn around to look at the odds board.
Yeah. Now, did he ever go to prison?
Well, define prison.
How about jail?
Well, I mean, you mean just the fact that on my iPhone, I wish I could hold it up on a podcast, I have a lovely picture of him that was provided by the city of New York. It was a service that they provided to certain people to take their photographs with numbers under them, so you can always find. It was a great city under Fiorello LaGuardia. Basically, he had, while he could claim, he fought extradition to going back in the hustling Hitler. What happened with the Hitler scam is he was arrested on a fugitive warrant from New York and California because we had normal diplomatic relations. With
right,
the
it was
Germans
only
in
37, right?
It was the 30s. But because he became a cause célèbre in Hollywood, where people like Al Jolson would give big money to his defense fund, the governor of California refused to extradite him.
Oh, wow.
But a year later, another case came to California. It seems that my great-uncle Freeman was running a sports book in 1930 out of a hotel in New York, and maybe he bet the wrong way. The odds were a little wrong on a Detroit Tigers game, but on a Saturday evening he was suddenly short $4,000, and the people who want to get paid from an illegal gambling room are not the most tolerant people in the world. So he did what you and I would do. He went down to the desk, found a gullible person behind the desk, and cashed a check for $4,000. It was a wonderful thing until the check, which was drawn on an obscure Canadian bank, came back 2 months later, no such account.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, the state of New York was also pesky about this, and they got him extradited in 1938 because it was a little hard for Freeman to claim that Adolf Hitler was behind his bum check in 1930.
Yeah, right, exactly. Exactly.
But he tried, but he quickly talked himself out of prison by saying that he would help the state arrest his Confederates in the Nazi nickel scam. He didn't, but he got himself out of jail and was actually supported by the New York DA's office for about a year. He died in 1942 in December in the office, in the hotel suite of a famous movie producer. He died of a heart attack. I always loved the idea that he was pitching his own life story to the movies.
Yeah.
What I fear he was doing there is trying to borrow $5.
Right. Or trying to get some sort of other scam.
I did this entire book based on newspaper clips, because there were about 3,000 clips, because there are no family papers. Actually, there's one. When my parents got married in 1941, they received a telegram saying, "Much felicitations, much happiness, Colonel Freeman Bernstein."
Colonel?
Now, Colonel. Now, the question is, I'm not sure what he was thinking. Clearly, my mother, who he never met, would have asked my father, who is this military hero in the family? And my father would have explained that it was an honorary title. It certainly wasn't fooling my father, who knew that my great-uncle Freeman, his Uncle Freeman, had been rejected for World War I service in his mid-40s, described as short and stout, like a teapot. My feeling is that Freeman Bernstein, down on his luck in Hollywood, had added the flourish Colonel Freeman Bernstein to impress the girl behind the Western Union counter.
Yeah.
So, and he died virtually penniless. I mean, he was...
Not virtually. I found his grave in Los Angeles, on the outskirts of Los Angeles, in an untended, dying Jewish cemetery. When I went there, they gave me the row and lot number. Except there was, I called back because there's nobody on premises, and says there's no number 27 in row 23. They said, look under the debris. So I moved about 2 inches of leaves and rubbish, and there it was, not even a headstone, a footstone that said, it didn't even give his full name. It was F. Bernstein, 1942. They didn't even have room for his year of birth, 1873. But my wife, we had a little water in the car. We cleaned it up as best we could. And not being religious, I thought I should say something to my great uncle, the mythical figure of my family. So I bent over the grave and said, "You are remembered."
Oh, that's nice.
Which is, if you're a showman who dies forgotten in 1942, it's a lovely thing to hear in 2016.
Oh, yeah. And now in 2023.
Yeah.
Walter, this has been fantastic. If people are not intrigued by now, they won't be. There's so many great stories in this book. Tell everybody where they can get your book.
Where they can get the book, it may be out of print. I'm not sure. Fine libraries have it. I know Audible has the audio version of it. It has also been, while I can't give you the details, it has been optioned for a Broadway musical on the order of the producers. So we're hopeful that someday you will see Hustling Hitler on Broadway.
If only Zero Mostel were still around.
You know what? I'm kind of a short...
I want Zero Mostel to play him.
Wouldn't he be perfect for it?
Well, although we're both short and stout.
I was thinking of Nathan Lane, but both of you are far better.
Thank you.
We're younger.
Just so everybody knows, it is available on Kindle.
It is, okay.
It is, because I ended up buying it yesterday to...
I'm honored.
Right. So I think I gave you like 42 cents, buddy.
So there you go.
God, trust me. This is my retirement. Okay. I'm going to retire, and it's going to be, you'll see me by the side of the road with a little sign, "We'll trade adverbs for food."
Well, and hopefully your tombstone 20 years from now will be big enough for your entire name.
It's only 30 years from now.
50 years from now.
70 years, 100 years.
Yeah. We'll have the all your name, your name, and even the date of your birth as well.
Walter,
oh God! I mean, we're thinking big here.
Thanks for doing the show, Walter. This has been fun.
This is great fun.
Yeah, and good luck to you. And we're looking for Hustling Hitler the musical.
Yes,
we're definitely.
Yes,
absolutely.
All right, thanks, Walter.
Thanks, Walter.
Bye-bye.
Well, that's it for this week's edition of the Minutia Men Celebrity Interview.
Special thanks to executive producer Tony Lasano with opishows.com. Opie is hippo backwards. OPPIH shows.com. Distributed by Ed Silla from the Radio Misfits. Great Talk Radio isn't dead. It just moved to a better place. RadioMisfits.com.
And we will be back again next week with another edition of the Minutia Men Celebrity Interview.
The preceding was a presentation of Opie Productions. Find our other great shows wherever you find podcasts, including opishows.com. Thank you.
This has been a presentation of Opie Productions.
Tony, can you shut up?